Oh, you can hit continue on that. And I'm assuming you don't want to leave the meeting now that it's being recorded. Okay. So Phyllis's iPad right now, I see that you are unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just trying to get my picture up and I'm not able to do that. So I'll mute myself right now.
Thank you, hon. And it's an iPad. I'm not sure. I can probably help you tech support through the chat if you want. But yeah, that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. I'll mute now.
Thank you, Livy. So hopefully that helps everybody. And like Livy said, if you have something that you're trying to puzzle through, maybe you haven't used your iPad with Zoom before, Livy sounds like she's willing to chat with you. So when you do that chat option, you can just pick one person and pick Olivia, and she can help you with that. But just to tell you a little how I'm going to do it, I'm going to go through my mom's life. So I'm going to start with her childhood. And if you told me ahead of time that you have something to share, I've got you on a list and I'm going to tell you when it's your turn. Paula put together some really nice visual aids to go with your sharing. But if you didn't tell me and you still want to share something, I'm going to give you a couple of windows of opportunity to just do the hand and say, I have something to share, because we'd love to hear from anybody who has something on their heart that they want to remember about Mary. And if you just want to be a silent participant and listen, that's fine too. But we're just really glad that you're here today. So when I was thinking about my mom, when I was thinking about Mary, I love the way that celebrations have always been a part of her life. And, you know, she was born on July 2nd. And Paula and I weren't there when she was little, but she used to always tell us stories about her childhood. And one of the things that she told us was that every year on the 4th of July, she was sure the fireworks were all about her. She was sure that those fireworks were a celebration of her birthday. So I think it's really sweet that we're celebrating her right sandwiched in between her actual birthday and the 4th of July this weekend, that you guys have taken the time out of your other celebrations to tune in and be with us. And we're going to start with people who remember Mary from her childhood. And hopefully, Patricia, are you willing to be our very first person to share? Paula put a picture together to go with your songs, and Patricia's going to sing for us.
Well, Mary was a lullaby person. She was a lullaby baby. Mary, at about 5 months old, developed whooping cough in Galveston. And my earliest 4-year-old memories are just looking at this little baby turning blue in her baby bed, her crib downstairs. My grandfather had hired a day nurse to help my mom out. And my grandmother, Mary Agnes, would come and sing lullabies to her namesake. And so this lullaby has been in our family for a long time. I don't know how long. Anna told me that Mary sang it to her children, and she and Paula sang it to their children. I sang it to my children, my grandchildren, my great grandson. And it's from the Autumn Lullabies, and it's Bye Baby Bye. The sun has gone from the setting sky. Bye baby bye. The dandelions have closed their eyes. Bye baby bye. The stars are lighting their lamps to see. Babes and squirrels and birds and trees sound asleep as they ought to be. Bye baby bye. The squirrel keeps warm in her furs of gray. Bye baby bye. 'Neath feathers birdies are tucked away. Bye baby bye. The yellow jackets, the bee, sleep tight and cuddle close in this chilly night. My baby's snug in her gown of white. Bye, baby, bye. The next little song is a song that Mary taught me. And in putting this song together, and I would sing it, I always sang the harmony with Mary. And I couldn't get the melody out, although I could hear it in my head. And I could hear Mary's voice. And Mary had a very whimsical part of her. And I thought, Mary, you took this with you when you left. So I'm just going to say part of it and sing part of it. And this is the one where the bed is too small for my tiredness. Bed is too small for my tiredness. Give me a hillside of trees, a cloud up under my chin, and Lord, blow the moon out, please. Rock me to sleep in a cradle of dreams. Sing me a lullaby of leaves and tuck a cloud up under my chin, and Lord, blow the moon out, please.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for those precious songs. It's good to see you too. Next, I'm hoping that Ruth will share something. Are you ready, Ruth?
Hello, everybody. Yes, I didn't realize I was supposed to get back to you that I did want to share, but I wasn't sure what. But so what I wrote a little quick. I don't think it's a poem.
I was just trying to turn it down.
Can you hear
Sorry.
me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I wrote a little poem to Mary. It's actually an ode, and I looked that up. Yeah, it's an ode. And it segues into two little stories that when Mary and I were little girls that I think you would be delighted hearing. So I just sat the other day and had Mary's pictures around me and just found that quiet space where I just started writing this short little message to her. Mary, I miss you. Thank you for loving me since I was a baby. And thank you for loving Livy since she was a baby. You were always there for me. I miss your exuberance for life. You were unself-conscious in the world, free from the burden and tyranny of judgment of self and others. You were color pure and gleeful joy. I love you. So that kind of moves right into the first little story I want to share. When we were little, we were born in Texas, but we moved out to California when I was 3, I think. And then we went back after Arthur was a baby and visited. And I've been trying to think when that was exactly, what month that would have been. But Arthur was in a stroller still. So Mary had this idea that she and I should dress Arthur up in polka dotted watercolor paints all over his body. So those little circle ones. So we just painted him all up. He was beautiful, so colorful. And then we'd put him in the stroller and off we went down the street and visited the neighbor ladies, and they were just so charmed. And so that was, we just felt so pleased with ourselves. That was that's the first little story. The second one is she and I, there was a little neighbor girl who, Vernie Sicer, who, I don't know if she was an only child, but she had lots of toys and everything. And we were over at her house once on that visit, and she had all these dolls, and she was combing their hair and dressing them, and we didn't have any. And so Mary and I thought, well, actually Mary was the instigator. I was her chum, you know, and so Mary said, well, actually we have dolls too, but we have to go get them. So we left that Bernie's house, and our grandfather owned a pharmacy down at the corner, and on the same block where he lived and my folks used to live, and all of us, and we knew he had storybook dolls, and you know, those kind that came in a box, and had the little dress all fanned out behind the little doll. So we went into the store, we grabbed one each, put it under our skirt, and ran out of the store and ran to Vernie Sicer's house. So we came in and we said, yep, these are our dolls, aren't they beautiful? And then we took them out of their packages and we started combing their hair and undressing them. And then Patricia came and found us and said, what is going on here? And so we were kind of, uh-oh. And Bernie says, oh, the girls are showing me their beautiful new dolls. And Patricia knew that wasn't the case. So somehow we had to go home. So we go home and Mama says, you're going to have to return those dolls. And we were just horror stricken. And that because they didn't look good anymore. And so we took them down to the corner and we sat in front of the pharmacy, and we could not get up the courage to go in and tell Grandpa that we had stolen these dolls from him, and we were sorry. So we sat there and just were in torment. And finally, we grabbed the dolls, ran into the store, threw them on the counter, and ran out of the store as quick as we could. We didn't say anything. And actually, that's the end of my memory about this whole thing. Now, I know Grandpa was kind of a spicy grandpa, so he wouldn't have, you know, let us get away with that. And I don't remember getting a spanking or anything. But what I realized was these two little stories tell a lot about Mary. And the first one was how creative, how she loved color, how she wanted to bring, like Anna was saying, she wanted to celebrate, she wanted to bring people together and joy. But there was this other side where she was a rascal, and she was willing to do things that even though and she'd get me to go along with her. And even though we knew we were being naughty, you know, I couldn't resist her. And so what I realized was Mary at that early age had a choice of how her character was going to develop. Was she going to be this creative, joyful person, or was she going to become a criminal? And no, I'm just teasing, but they're just cute little stories to just say how Mary was, well, not only somebody that I followed, she was my closest and age sibling. And I just would, you know, basically do whatever Mary wanted. And we were friends through our whole life. And when Libby was born, Mary was so supportive because I wasn't in Davis and close by, and so we would drive over to Mary's and the girls, and it was just so nice for me to have a sister close by that I could feel, I could learn from, and so all through our life she was there for me, and for Livy too, and so I just have wonderful memories of our time together, and we'll continue to. So glad you're all here, and thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ruth. Those were precious. And I think about her classroom kind of, once I wrote about it as being kind of like a pirate ship. So I think she had the ability to be a leader who did adventurous things, but didn't get in trouble for doing them really through her life in all the right ways. I had written down that Leonard Junker was going to share something about actually her dad and how they first came to America, but I don't see him or his wife on the screen. So is there anybody else that knew Mary when she was a child that has anything to share? I'm guessing probably not. And so if that's the case, we're going to transition now into her next role, which was as both mama to us, Paula and me, and aunt to all of her nieces and nephews. So I'm going to let Paula start. And then I've got Mary Paula also written down. But after that, any niece and nephew that wants to say something about your memories of Aunt Mary can feel free to take a turn. So we're going to turn it over to Paula. Oh, wait, and I was just going to say real quick how celebrations were when we were kids. Sorry, almost forgot. Just that she did so many sweet things. She would make paper crowns for us on our birthdays. Once she even invited Uncle Chicken to come and crash our party in the backyard. She had tea parties for us with more cream and sugar than tea. She had big dress-up trunks so that we could imagine and play. And so that celebration that she started when she was a child just continued through our childhood. And I'm going to let Paula share a little bit more about that now. Ready, Paula?
Okay, I am going to be sharing a PowerPoint while I talk, but I need to get it in the right mood. So hold on just one second. There we go. So I'm really nervous. So you'll probably be able to tell from me talking that I'm super nervous, but I wanted to try and explain who Mom was to me. Sometimes who is a difficult thing to describe. It's just a feeling that you have and you can't quite put the words together for it. So when I came across this wedding card that she had given me and Paul, all I saw was Mom in it, because all those words that she had written to us, she wrote us this card as we were getting married, kind of as a keys to a happy marriage love letter to us, where she wanted us just to have this happy life together. But when I came across it, while I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about, I saw all these words and they just described Mom so perfectly. And the card and the little thing that I put across the top, it was so, you know, everything that Mom did was very creative. She had this creative spirit about her, and I didn't inherit the creativity that she has, but the style that she raised me and Anna in was filled with this beautiful way of just love and creativeness throughout all the small things. Simple things became creative outlets for her. And when I think of her parenting and her teaching and how she was a grandmother to our kids, she didn't really, in my eyes, when I look back on it, it didn't seem like work that she did. It was all just ways for her to let her creative energies flow through what she did. So I thought of just a couple of things that reminded me of that. One example is when we were kids, Mom liked to have a clean house, and she taught us, you know, every Saturday morning you would do your house cleaning, but rather than just tell us all what we had to do for our house cleaning, she had these lovely house cleaning chore cards that she made, and they were beautiful colors and they were laminated, and every week we'd put them out on the kitchen table, and there were hard ones like vacuuming and medium ones like dusting the house, and there were simple ones, and they were kind of color coded, and we would figure out who was going to go first drawing that week, and we would just go round robin, and everybody would collect their little cards, and you could do them in whatever order you wanted. But it was her way of turning chores into something fun and creative. And another thing she used to do was when we were young, she would make our lunches, and we always took our lunch to school, and she would put our lunch in these brown paper bags. And I don't remember anything she ever packed us for lunch, but I do remember those bags that she had for us. She would once a week, or sometimes more, but I think it was at least once a week, she would sit down and make a beautiful coloring on these brown paper bags that we had. And they would have rainbows and hearts and beautiful flowers with our name written on them. And all week long, we would take our lunch in there. And thinking back on that, I just know that that was her way of telling us that she loved us and was thinking about us when we went off to school. it was just everything she did was like that. She also was big on making cards, and especially Valentine's Day, she would cut out these beautiful heart cards and use glue and crayons and pens and all different colors. And she would make me and Anna and Dad these poems, and she'd write them in calligraphy. And it wasn't, I don't remember ever getting a gift at Valentine's Day, really, but I do remember those cards. And it wasn't ever about the gift, it was about making the gift she gave beautiful. So she did curling ribbon and put little, just extra special things on it. Even when I went off to college and moved to Florida, she continued. When she'd write me letters, she would decorate the envelopes and do little border pictures all along. And when we would go to the mailbox, I'd meet the mailman out there sometimes, and he would just be like, somebody has really gone to town on this envelope. It would have these, just like the border on the bottom of that little letter to me, it would have all those flowers and stuff on there. And I just knew that that was just how she was showing us that she loved us. The card might even just say, was thinking about you today, love you, Mom. But she had spent another hour creating this beautiful picture for us. And then one of my memories that always comes back is this particular camping trip we went on. We went camping every summer, and we were in Fort Bragg, and me and Anna were probably at that age where we just got restless and bored with camping and being away from our friends. So Mom made this beautiful treasure hunt for us. And there were clues throughout the campsite and all over the campground. And each one had drawings of her showing us where the next clue would be. And they had like me and Anna doing certain things, cute little caricatures of that, and little animals and pine cones. And we would just, go all over this campsite looking for the next clue. And the prize at the end was probably like a little bowl of berries or something. It wasn't about the prize. It was the beauty of making this hunt fun for us, something we might remember and have a memory for when we grew up. And I do. I think about that quite a bit. I wish that these days everybody has cameras and you take pictures of everything. And I wish that I had pictures of some of these little, my lunch bag and this little treasure hunt that she gave us. And, because they're so precious, those memories, I just hold on to those. And the last thing I wanted to say about her creative nature that she had was just the time she taught in school and her creative techniques that she used on the kids that went into her room. From time to time, I would get to take my kids to her class, and they would get to be kids in Grandma Marie's class. And they always felt like they were super special because, these kids all loved and adored Mom, but it was their Grandma Marie. And she taught those kids in the class through art and music and drama. She was even able to bring like challenged kids. She would come home at the beginning of the year and say, I've got so many high need challenged kids. And at the end of the year, they would all be at grade level and they would just love her. And she became family to these kids that came through her class. Sometimes there'd be siblings, and she taught multi-age, so she'd have a family for a whole decade. And I just know that they probably, I know because some of them are here and their families are here today, but they remember those times in her class and the creativity that she poured into them. That was how she loved. And so, the root of everything, this whole letter, that's just how Mom showed that she loved, and I miss her. And that's what I wanted to share about Mom.
Thank you, Paula. You got me too. Paula always says I remember more than she remembers from our childhood, but those memories, I didn't have all those memories, and that was precious. Thank you so much, Paula, for sharing. Mary Paula, are you wanting to share something that you remember from your Aunt Mary?
Yeah, I would love to. And Livy, if I go too long, you have my full permission to put up your little sign. But I just have so many sweet memories of your mom. And most of my memories are when we lived in Woodland and we're close to you in Davis. And that would have been when I was from like 8 to 10 years old. And I remember at that Davis house, there was a playroom. And in that playroom, there was an organ. There were all kinds of toys for creativity, and they were on this shelf that, in fact, I can see it in my mind. It was like either a baby blue or teal color. And with these little hand painted, I don't know if your mom painted it or bought it that way. I assume she painted it, but all these little flower decorations on every shelf. And when we were little, we loved going to Anna and Paula's house because of that playroom. And the word that that comes to my mind with your mom is legacy. And that's that I think she left legacy that she doesn't even know about. And when I grew up and had my own family, I wanted to have a playroom like the playroom that she created for you guys because she valued play and creativity. And so when we bought our first house and Josh was 4 and Daniel was 2 and Michael was a baby, and it had a family room. And that family room became the playroom. And in that playroom were organized buckets of toys, because I'm kind of organized too, like dress up clothes and a box of musical instruments and just all of that. And it was her, you know, it was my childhood memories and creating that for my own children. I also had chore cards, Paula. I had no idea your mom did that. And mine were not so nicely decorated. They were just index cards, but kind of the same way of wanting to have chores be more, I don't know, just fun, or where people could have some choice. Probably some of my most poignant memories were at a really difficult time in my family. My mom was hospitalized with her first psychotic break, basically, of her bipolar illness. We were told your mom had a nervous breakdown. And at that time, my dad's alcoholism was kind of kicking into gear. I was the oldest of a family of 5 and a little bit of a lost child. You know, there was so much going on in the family that, but during the time my mom was in the hospital, your mom took Katie and I, the kids, because she was in the hospital for several weeks and everything still went on, school and my dad going to work, and somebody needed to take care of the kids. So Katie and I went to your house. Your mom made such a safe place for us. You know, here we were kind of kids in crisis. And I just remember your home being a place of warmth and love and stability. And just your dad too, he would make tea for us every morning. Katie and I shared that memory, but you know, like English tea with cream in it or milk. But it was during that time at your house that I shared that other story that we had watched this Rodgers and Hammerstein version of Cinderella. And I loved it because the Disney Cinderella was blonde and I'm a brunette. And here was Cinderella that had brown hair, just like me. And I was saying to your mom about how beautiful Cinderella was. And she turned to me and said, well, Mary Paula, it wouldn't be that hard to just go to the fabric store and find some fake fur and make the you know, we could do the collar of the cape that Cinderella was wearing. And it wouldn't be that hard to, you know, make this cape. And we never wound up doing it. But for me as a little girl in that situation, to have an adult who loved me enough to say, let me step into this dream and dream this dream with you. And I feel like for me, that's been legacy, because for my own children, I wanted to step into their dream and dream their dreams with them too. And she okay, thank you, Livy. She showed me how to do that. The other thing is, during that time that we were at your house, I accidentally broke a piece of furniture in the kitchen, and it was foolishness. I was kicking or dancing or doing something. And I was just horrified and thought, okay, now I'm going to get punished. I broke this piece of furniture. And her answer to me was, Mary Paula, it came from a yard sale. Don't worry about it. But I learned from that. And with my own children, like later on, I heard on a parenting program, probably focus on the family. You know, what does a child need who spills a glass of milk at the table? Do they need scolding? Do they need to go to their room? You know, what does that child need? No, that child needs to be handed a rag to clean up the milk. You know, that's what that child needs in that moment. Your mom was doing that way before any of these parenting things even came out, of just grace. Okay, I'm on my time, but these are things, this is a legacy that your mom left with me that carried on into even my own parenting with my own children.
Thank you, Mary. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, we don't have any other cousins officially on the agenda, but I would like to open it up. Is there any other niece or nephew of Mary's who does have something that you just want to share and put on a gallery? Just raise your hand if you do. And if you don't, that's okay too. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move forward. So as Paula and I got older.
Oh, I think
Hey, there's
Margaret
two of
and I
them.
have our hands
Yeah,
raised.
I saw Margaret raise her hand.
Okay, good. So let's
Go ahead,
let
Margaret.
go. And then Livy, are you going to go after Margaret?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry, ladies.
I just want to follow up on only one thing that Mary mentioned about how she broke something and Aunt Mary was so sweet about it. And mine is that I was staying and I believe I was sleeping in her bed. And at one point we got up in the middle of the night and she got a trash bag and laid it in the bed. And I wondered about that, like, hey, why did that happen? And at some point later, as an adult, I realized that I must have wet the bed, but there was no shaming, just very nicely getting up, taking all the things, putting them away, putting me in the bed again. Never said anything mean or unkind about it, such that, like, I only figured it out as an adult. Oh, that's why she did that. So really cool. And like, it makes me, I guess it impacts how I interact with kids. Just that little thing. Thanks.
Okay, let me set my timer. God, I could go on for days and days and days. Okay, so yeah, all my cousins were so cool. Just like unbearably cool. All of you, everyone here, hella cool. But I was the youngest, and then I guess Andrew after me. I was like, yes, there's a younger one. But like, I just always felt intimidated, it just in a lot of ways as a little kid. And there was something about Mary. Mary had this ability to focus on me and listen to me. And I never felt judged. I felt honored. And the playfulness, the joy, the like, let's pull the big blanket out and into the backyard and lay down on it and look at the clouds and listen to the birds. And I just more and more see how I treasure the world is so related to Mary and being with Mary when I was growing up. And I feel like other my notes. Like what an atmospheric influence she has had on me. How my home is like your home should be where you feel safe and comfortable and joyous and peaceful. And how I arrange things, I mean, I have my necklaces hanging on a branch on the other side of the room. Like my plants are balanced, their leaves are clean. It's like, I just see Mary in so much of my life, and also her ability to, she really understood that you had a choice as to what you wanted to pay attention to you, what you wanted to pay attention to you, to. And that you had control over that. And there have been so many times in my life where I've leaned into the negative. I've just seen the, just the pessimistic view of things and the negative view of myself and people around me. And just more and more, I feel like, wow, she really curated her input, like the content that she allowed in her home and allowed in her mind. And I can see how it changed her thinking. I mean, her thinking was from a place of being happy, joyous, and free. And that was a decision on her part. It's incredibly empowering. And I am so grateful for that. Okay, so I really thought, I mean, I still think I'm special, obviously. I mean, just so special. But she had a way of making me feel so special that I truly didn't understand I just didn't understand what was really going on. I remember the first time, sorry, one more minute. The first time I went, I had a concept that there were other children in Mary's life, not older children, but like other children, and like seeing her classroom and just being like, what is going on here? What? And like her heart was so big, it just hugged me, but it opened more and let that kid in, and this kid, and this kid, and this kid. Years and years of these children, her heart just swollen for them, and all the cousins. And I just like, I remember I have this little book. It's made me love strawberries, but there's like a little gnome in it, and there's a sick girl, and she's like made better through these little strawberries, these bowls of strawberries. And like literally yesterday when I was looking at it, I was like, huh, the girl's name is Emily in here. Like this wasn't made exactly for me, probably. Like other children benefited from this book. Shit. And I have like quilts from her, and I just feel like the coziness in my life is so related to like all of the warmth and kindness that Mary gave me throughout my life. So I'm so happy we're all here able to celebrate her. Time.
Thank you, timekeeper. That was beautiful. I love your heart for my mama. And thank you for keeping me in check if I miss anybody's hand, please. Is there anybody else that wants to share about Aunt Mary before we move on in her life? Livy, do we have anybody? I'm just going to let you scroll your eyes on the pictures. So as we grew up, as Paula and I grew up, she got drawn into the education environment, which actually, Livy, that was a perfect segue to talk about how you visited her classroom. And I did too. I visited as like a helper student, and I became older and moved through my life and swore I wasn't going to be a teacher. I saw how hard she worked. I saw how small her paychecks were. I said, I'm not going to be a teacher. But I just got drawn into the education environment myself. And when I was a young teacher, I had 2 grades that I was trying to teach, and my principal sent me to my mom's class so that I could watch and learn how to teach multi-age. And so I got a great visit with my mom and a couple of days in her classroom, and I sat and I watched and I talked with the kids and I listened, and I went back to San Diego and I said, there's no way I can do what she does. She's just way too amazing. The creativity, the community sense that she has in her classroom. I don't know how she does that. I can't learn how to do that. And the cool thing though is that just like how Mary Paula was sharing how so many things that my mom did, just you almost kind of caught it and it became a part of your lifestyle. Or Libby, like you were talking about your house, that's how it was with the classroom and also with me for parenting. Just as I've gone through my years, I've seen so many influences of my mama in the way that I've taught other students, the way that I've parented. And so we're going to move into now her part of life where she was Mrs. Michaelis and then Ms. A or Ms. Araujo. And we're going to let people who were in her class share with her. And I did get permission from Alan Lee. He's got a song to share with us, and hopefully we're going to sing together. So Alan, are you ready to share?
Okay, so I have a few things to share, and we'll get to that song here in a second. I'm going to start by reading a post that somebody made about Mary. I'll just read the whole post. It's just a few words. Our son, this is from Mike Richard. Our son Tim was blessed to be in Mary's class. She was a joy. I remember one father tearing up upon his child's graduation to the next grade. And he says in quotes, I have sent you 3 sons and have no more to send you. So after I read that, I replied to Mike, that was me. So this morning, I was going over with my wife what grades our sons were in with Mary.
I'll introduce Matthew.
So the first one is Eric. He had Mary from kindergarten through 3rd grade. Second child was Ryan, 1st through 3rd grade. And Matthew, who is on the call today, was with her from 1st to 3rd grade. So somebody mentioned a decade. I did my calculation, and so that was a decade.
Yeah.
So I I have no way. I don't understand why I'm so emotional about one person, one teacher. I don't remember any other teachers I'm emotional about, but here's one that I'm emotional about. So going back to that end of the year celebration, so I got up and told this story. I have no more sons to give you. And as part of the celebration, my wife, who doesn't remember that, she's here with me, Marlene, she had made this clay pot. And around, my wife is a calligrapher, among other things, and she wrote around the side of the pot some words to a song that I, not the students, I, as a dad, learned by being in Mary's classroom for 10 years. So that's the song that I'd like to sing, that I'd like all of us to sing if you have any inclination, but I'm going to sing it in any case. So Paula has the words written out.
And you can take off your mute button if you're brave enough to sing with us.
So Paula told me Mary sang this to her kids too.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, so here we go. Make new friends and keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. Circle round that never ends. That's how long I want to be your friend. Okay, so one small story about somebody else who's on this call today. So one year, this old guy came into Mary's classroom, and all I knew was he came in and told stories. And that person was Frank Araujo. So evidently, Mary and Frank fell in love, and then eventually they got married. And so myself and Marlene and all three of our boys were at the wedding at somebody's backyard. So my condolences to you, Frank, and to the daughters and all of the relatives. So I knew Mary as, it seems like a distance. I was a parent of some kids in the room, but I loved her also.
Thank you so much for sharing those memories. And is there anybody else from Mary's classroom who would like to share? Am I missing a hand? Oh, yes, Anja. Please do share.
So I was another part of a decade family in Mary's classes. I was the oldest, and I was in from first grade through third grade. And my sisters came after me. We were 3 years apart, so it ended up being a decade total. And Mary is inexplicably entwined with my mother. My mother was very active in the classroom, Melissa, and it wasn't just a class, it was a family. I'm still friends with most of the girls and boys I knew then, or at least talk to them. And it fostered not just the creativity, but also acceptance that I don't think I would have had if I hadn't been in her class. A lot of the kids in the class were neurodivergent or had behavior issues or mental health issues or family issues. And Mary made a point of making sure that everybody was included, everybody was valued equally. And it was something that I learned from her. I remember one time I said something really stupid to another kid, and Mary didn't let me get away with it. She made me sit down with this other student and apologize and talk about why what I said wasn't okay. And looking back, that was like my first time of becoming anti-racist. What I said was racist without meaning to be. And it opened my eyes to the impact that our words and actions have on others. And it kind of set the seed for the fact that empathy isn't just a trait, it's also a skill that you have to learn and you have to practice. And that's something that I pulled into my teaching when I became a teacher too. And it's also, I think, entirely due to Mary that I became a teacher, because all the way back in first, second, and third grade, she fostered that. She let me teach other kids and tutor them and help them. And, you know, that carried through the rest of my life. And, you know, I might not be teaching currently, but I'm still a teacher. I still identify as that. It's part of who I am because of her. And so many other things in my life that I've reflected on over the past few weeks are, I see her influence. I've been part of women's circles recently, and then I remember doing circles at her house at night with candles and talking sticks. And in the classroom, having consensus-based, you know, discussions, even with kids, treating kids as people and not just little people, you know, they're full people. And I see, thank you. The whimsy and the magic and embracing our differences all came from her. And for that, I am forever grateful for her. And she's always going to be a presence in my life, not just because of the memories, but because of how she shaped me as a person too.
Anya, you were not only Mary's student, but you were my student too. And I loved having you in the class because you were always one of my best learners, because I knew that you knew how to learn. And Alan, your three boys were just wonderful and such a sweet part of who we were. And these memories and everything you guys are bringing to our attention are just pure gold, something we will keep with us all the rest of our days.
Thank you so much for sharing, Anja. Do we have any other people from Mary's classroom that wanted to share something today? Am I missing a hand anywhere? These boxes are so little. Okay, so in the golden years of her teaching, which really that was her most alive time in the classroom with her students and with the families. And I remember her telling me about those parties at her house, the storytelling parties. And then one day she called me and I was in San Diego, and Alan kind of gave a slight spoiler, but that's okay. She told me that she'd met a storyteller. She told me that she'd met the most incredible man. She said, he even knows Ben and Jerry of the ice cream. And this man is amazing and you've got to meet him. And that very summer, there was just the most fabulous wedding in the backyard of one of her colleagues, Allegra. So, and her students were there, her students danced. My husband, Jeff, got to sing a song that he wrote for them. And the love that Mary and Frank shared was just a wonderful, beautiful love. And Frank has agreed to share a song with us today that we'll just listen to this one and let him share something that was precious to her and to him together.
Thank you, Anya. Anna, sorry, got to have Anna and Anya. So yeah. As a preface to this, one of the things that Mary and I shared was, of course, is a love of music and a love of bringing our music as a means of expressing what we feel. And since both Mary and myself are of Irish heritage, we were very, very fond of Celtic music and Irish folk songs. And we went on a pilgrimage to Ireland, and Mary visited all the sacred places. And of course, I was paying my respects to St. Guinness and St. Jameson in the evening, but we won't go into that. So the point is that there was this one song that she really loved. When I found out that she was in transition, which is hospital speak for getting ready to die, it shocked me, but I was determined to be there. And I went there that night. I had not seen her for a year due to the COVID restrictions. And when I came in and saw her, I could see that she was in that state of advanced confusion, and she really didn't know who I was. So I took her hand and I sang to her. And this was her favorite song. And I hope I can get through it. The blue moon was rising above the blue mountain. The sun was descending into the blue sea. When I walked with my love to the crystal blue fountain that blows in the beautiful vale of Tralee. She was beautiful and fair as a rose in the summer, but 'twas not her beauty alone that won me. Oh no, 'twas the truth in her eyes ever glowing that made me love Mary, the rose of Tralee. When I sang that song to her, her face lit up and she started to sing it along with me. I went home that evening because I had been up all night and spent the day with her. And I hadn't had anything to eat. And I had been home just a few minutes when I got the call that she had died. And I returned. I sat by her bed and I wept. In a sense, this was kind of the final moment. I think of it in terms of the 3 kisses that I gave her when I left the first time, when I left the second time, when she was in that comatose state preparing to exit this life, and the goodbye when I kissed her forehead. It's significant that Anya and several of her other fellow students have gone on to become teachers. And they say that Mary taught them to teach. Well, let me say that I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher since 1970, except for the 28 years that I was working as an overseas consultant. And Mary taught me to teach because when we went through our CLAD training, we took the professional classes. She was an incredible, incredible woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. That was beautiful. Since we're talking about her marriage and Frank and what a special connection the two of you had, one of the things that I was thinking about was just how very much you both were there for each other through everything, through your adventures, going to Ireland, going in the classroom, through hardships of various shapes and sizes. And you were faithful absolutely to one another and loved each other wholeheartedly. One of the things that demonstrated Frank's love to my mom near the end of her life when she was starting to lose some of her functionality, but she still lived with Frank. And then when he'd come and visit her at the Sun Oaks facility where she got memory care, Frank always would hold the phone so that her kids and her grandkids could have conversation with her. And just like Frank said with the music, one of the keys to my mom's heart was always music. And you could see it through every stage of her life. She sang in the classroom, she sang to her children, she sang to her nieces and nephews, and we sang together. And that was my favorite way really to connect with my mom in her later years. And so to follow up your beautiful song, Frank, Emma and I, one of our favorites with Mom was You Are My Sunshine. And you guys probably know that song. We decided to just do the chorus of that song and not the verses because they can be a little sad themselves. But if anybody would like to take off your speaker again and sing with us, and Emma and I are going to lead you in You Are My Sunshine, we'll sing it through twice since it's pretty short. Ready?
Yep.
You are my sunshine, my
Only
only
sun.
Sunshine,
You make
you
me
make me
happy
happy
when
when
skies
skies are
are
gray.
never
Never know,
know,
dear,
much
how much I love
you don't
you.
take
My sunshine away.
are my sunshine, only
Only sunshine,
make me
happy
happy.
when skies are gray.
Will never
No, dear,
much
how much I love
you take.
Please don't
you.
take
Take my
my
sunshine away.
It's so funny because just like when we used to sing it on the phone with her, you'd get that echo, that crazy echo, and you just go ahead and sing it anyway. And her voice wouldn't quite be in sync with my voice, but our hearts were right there connected with each other. And that's Emma that you can see in the picture. She's one of Grandmary's grandchildren. So when Paula and I had kids, it was a delight to be able to introduce our children to our mama, who she decided, she named herself, she said she was going to be Grandmarie to all of her grandchildren. And a few of them are going to share, all of them are here. So I guess maybe it's girls are more comfortable sharing on Zoom, I don't know. But before they do, Paula has something else that she would like to share from my mom's days as Grandmarie. You ready, Paula?
Yeah. Hold on one second. Share. Okay, so I do better sharing with a visual in front of me because I have to read. So this is a picture of my mom when I was a little girl, and I thought about including this this topic with when I was a little girl section, but it actually fits really nicely in with the Grandmarie section because my mom was the same with us that she was when she was a grandmother to our kids. And so one of the biggest things that my mom taught me was about spending time together. And I remember being a little girl and I was very social. I always wanted to have someone to play with me, and I'm sure I wore my mom out. She was social also, but she liked to have her quiet time and her downtime. So at a young age, my mom created something called Together Time. And they were just little chunks of time, might be a half hour or an hour, that she would just take time off from doing whatever she was doing in the day, and she would just spend time with me. And I treasured those times. So she could kind of put me off to kind of learn to be independent, but I knew I had this together time coming up. And when I was a little girl, me and Anna would play paper dolls with mom. And that's one of my fondest memories, except for mom. She had this great imagination, and she would create these elaborate stories with these paper dolls. And Anna and I would just have our paper dolls in our hands half the time and just be watching her play with her paper dolls. And she would have this whole storyline, and then me and Anna would figure out a way for us to go play with her paper dolls. And so we would enter ourselves into her little story that she had created. And she always had something different going on. There'd be lemonade stands with the paper dolls, or sleepovers with the paper dolls, or fights that they'd have to work out. Just any theme she could turn into a great story. And then that dinger would go off, and mom would have to go off and make dinner or something, and she'd leave me and Anna to continue playing paper dolls. And we'd kind of sit there, and then we'd start just redoing whatever story mom had done with her paper dolls, because that was the best story that there was. And it wasn't ever the same, because she just had this creative gift about play that I've never seen anybody else be able to do, this creative play that mom used to do. And as I got older, we transitioned out of the imaginary play, and she used to still do together times with me. We would play cards. Her grandmother and her mother had played canasta with her, and so we played canasta almost like several times a week. We would use our together time to play cards, and it wasn't, I'm sure she was sick of playing cards, but she really wanted to commit to having that special time that we would just be one-on-one together and have a together time. Well, so now fast forward to when I had kids, and she becomes Grandma Marie, and she did the same thing with my kids. When she would come to visit, first of all, she would come running down the airway, back before, you had to go through all the security. She would come running off the plane and come and hug all my kids. And then they just were so excited, because they knew that they were in for this treat for the next week or so when mom was here. And she would get down on the floor and play with them. They'd play stuffed animals, and she'd tell them silly stories. She'd read them books. She'd tickle them. She would sing songs with them, teach them things. She would do art with them. They were just so in love with her. She was just magical to be around. They couldn't wait to get up in the morning to go visit with her. They'd stand and wait for her. And then when she would go home after a visit, my kids would expect me to be able to entertain them like my mom had done. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have that imagination that she had, but I would try as hard as I could. So I'd tell them, okay, for 30 minutes, I'm gonna sit and play guys with you. They had these stuffed animals they played with, and I'll play stuffed animals with you for a half hour. And I would make up a story, and I'd be thinking about my mom the whole time with the storyline. And then my time would be up, and I'd finally get to go break away and do something else. And I'd say, hey, you all keep playing. And I would hear them in the other room, and they would be redoing the same story that I had been playing with them. So I guess my mom did teach me something about how to do imaginary play with children. And what she taught me, though, when you look at all of the things that she did with me, was that together time with your kids it's invaluable. When you spend time with them and you do what they want to do, it just shows them how much you love them and the importance of time spent together. And that was probably one of the biggest gifts that my mom gave me. So.
All right. So, and then we're going to transition from Paula to Allie.
Yes. So like my mom was saying, I just remember being so excited for when Grandma Marie and Grandpa Frank would come. I would be counting down the days. We'd go to the airport and I'd be looking for that tie-dye shirt that she would always wear, or one with a butterfly or with a tree. And I'd spot it all the way across the terminal and I'd be so excited, and they would just run. They'd be running at full speed all the way down the terminal. And then the whole time they were there, it was just magical. And as soon as we'd get home, I'd want to play with her. I'd bring out all my favorite toys and we would play all these fun games, and every story she came up with were just amazing. And I always just had so much fun with her. And she would have her Bible studies that she would do in her room every day. She would close her door and just have some quiet time. And I remember waiting outside of the door for her to finish so that we could play again. And I would be counting down the minutes. I'm like, oh, she's almost done. I think she's almost done. I hear her in there. I think she's getting up. You can play again. And so that was just whole time she would be at her house was just magical, always magical. And then when we would go to their house, sometimes in the summer, it was like going into a fairy tale, because their house was so special to me and to Katie and just to our whole family. The smells and her garden in the backyard was just this fairy paradise, basically. And we would just have so much fun out there gardening, or just looking at the flowers and looking at the trees. And in the morning, Grandpa Frank would make us his animal-shaped pancakes that were just so good, and we'd look forward to them every year. And I remember going to her school to see all the kids that she taught and playing in the playground. And there was this song that she and I always liked to sing. I think it was by Rafi. It was called Oats and Beans and Barley Grow. And I remember walking home from her school, singing that song with her, holding hands. And that song just always reminds me of her, and it was just a special song for us. And then when we were apart, her and I would do this pen pal thing where I would draw a couple random lines on a piece of paper, and then I would mail it to her, and she would mail it back she would turn the lines that I drew into this beautiful picture that she would color, and it would just be a picture of us doing something, and she would write this like sweet letter on the back of it. And she would also send me another picture that had a couple lines that she drew, and so then I would get to finish that picture and send it back to her the same way she did to me. And I just remember that being a special thing that we would do when we were apart, and she would call us on our birthdays and sing to us over the phone. And just the imagination that she had and her love of singing and dancing has really, thanks Libby, has really instilled itself in me. And because I love listening even to Celtic music too. And I just remember the songs that she would sing, and the imaginary play that we would do. And I feel like that's just become part of my life too. And I hope that when I become a grandma, I can be as amazing as she was and pass that on. Thanks.
And I didn't get a chance to say, in case you don't know, Allie and Katie are Paula's daughters. And Katie, are you also going to share something?
Yeah, I was just going to share a picture that I drew really quick for Mother's Day for my mom. So I redrew this picture that was taken a while ago of them together, and it was right after Grandma Marie had passed away, and it was on Mother's Day, and I could tell that my mom was really having a hard time, and I couldn't really think of much to give her for Mother's Day, but I like to draw, so I thought the only thing that I could really contribute for her Mother's Day was to draw her a special picture for her and Grandma Marie. So I drew this picture to honor both of them.
Wow. That's amazing, Katie. You did a wonderful job on that. And it's a beautiful picture of the two of them. I'm also going to introduce to you guys my daughter, Emma, and she has a song that she wrote that she'd like to share with us. So Emma, are you ready for us?
Yep. So some of my favorite memories with Mary, or Grandma Marie as I knew her, in the summertime, me and my family would go up to her and Grandpa's house. And me and Grandma Marie, we would go out in the garden, and she had this big box of all these little fairies, these little teacups, figurines, all these kind of magical little things. And we'd always take them out, put a little blanket on the grass so none of them would get wet. And we'd just sit there and we'd have these little fairy parties. And she always told me that she was the fairy queen and that someday I would be the fairy queen after she was gone. And so that was just a really kind of special thing between the two of us. When I was 10, I think, she sent me that box with all the fairy things in it. And I have them all in my room now. And so I wrote a song, kind of just the fairies kind of crying for their queen that they have lost. I'll play that now. Farewell to the fairy queen, Euphoria. Her hair like golden red flames will burn no more. For she fought a bitter enemy whose power overtook her. So I sing farewell, sweet sleep. We loved her long, we loved her well. Victoria, we mourn you, but now you're looking toward the new fire sun. For many a circulation you ruled us, and we were safe in your caring wings. But now a cold wind sweeps the haven, and we close our wings in sorrow, and we weep for our dear Euphoria. We loved you well, we loved you long, Euphoria, we mourn you. Now you're looking toward the new fire sun. Many a long night without Euphoria, for our dear queen is laying with the dead. All your people adored you, and we'll see you once again. But till then, sweet sleep, Euphoria. We loved her long, we loved her well. Euphoria, we mourn you. Now you're looking toward the new fire sun. Now you're looking toward the new fire sun. Now you're looking toward the new fire sun. That's it.
Emma, thank you so much for sharing. That was so beautiful and clearly from your heart. And it has a lot of Grandma Marie spirit in it too. I'd like to just open up the opportunity for any of Grandma Marie's grandsons, if you want to say a few words.
I raise my hand.
Ryan, are you?
Oh, I can go. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand, but I guess we're here. Oh, raise my hand. Hello. So I'll keep it brief because I didn't really prepare much. But my sisters kind of covered everything are a lot of the stuff that made the impact that Grandma Marie had on us as kids. But I just want to kind of point out something that I've learned over the years and has kind of reminded me not just of memories of Grandma Marie, but just stuff that I've seen her spirit in my day-to-day life and the lessons I've been learning from my wife, who I love very much. And it's that I spent so many years trying to put myself in places where I could experience the magic of life or whatever. Like, I don't know, great experiences or just positions where I would, I don't know, get taken back to that place where I was as a kid and spending time in Grandma Marie's garden and the smells and stuff at our house is just magical. But I've learned that with just putting in a little bit of effort, like you can make that magic for yourself in little ways. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, a big undertaking. It can be as small as planting a strawberry plant and watching it grow. And I think that is just how she operated. She created magical experiences just with her beautiful mind. And it's reminded me, or I think of her more and more as days go on in just ways that I can, I don't know, make my life magical too. And that's it. That's all for me.
Thank you, Ryan, for sharing. Besides the grandkids, which definitely, if any of my boys want to share, you are welcome to do that. I just want to open up the opportunity one more time to anybody who's here that just maybe something stirred in your heart that you wanted to share with us, something simple about Mary that you didn't get a chance to say before we come near the end of our time together. We would love to hear from you. And of course, that's not pressure at all. We just are happy to have you with us, remembering with us. So if you do have something that you want to say, let us know now. And if anybody sees a hand and I miss it, please tell me. Marie?
You know, one of the things that struck me when I heard that Mary passed away was at her wedding. And she had on these wonderful fairy wings, and listening now to the granddaughter speaking, Emma, she was just so light and so joyous and so beautiful, just in this garden where the ceremony was. And as I was listening to everyone and the idea of legacy and the sense of all the little threads of her that have touched everyone's lives, and especially in the sense of her appreciation for magic and the imagination and the creative spirit. And so I just picture her now. I picture when she died, I was picturing her dancing with these fairy wings. I could just see her doing it. And even now amongst us, I'm imagining that she has her little fairy wings, but also her little dusting, you know, how you dust with fairy dust, and just sort of dusting everybody with this whole sense of magical joy and light and grace and creative spirit. So that's just what came to me as I was sitting here listening. pondering Mary's life and how she touched me. So thank you.
Thank you, Marie. That's beautiful. Is there anybody else that would also like to just chime in and say something before we come near the end?
Yeah, I would just like to respond to one of to Marie's remarks. When we were up there in Port Townsend visiting you, I just wanted to recall how there was Mary and Mary and your husband sat out on the porch overlooking that beautiful scene, and they were talking about their childhood, and both of them were just laughing and enjoying it, and you know, just really connecting. The other thing is, it's kind of funny that Marie and I have these other kind of weird network connections. You're also pals with the guy I went to high school with. And of course, you took French at Davis from one of my best friends.
So unless somebody else has some, oh, Paul, do you have something you want to share?
You're muted, Paul.
Okay, there we are. Got it. So I just want to share a little bit about when I met Mary for the first time. I was in the Navy at the time, and Paula and I were just starting to date a couple of months. And I remember being so nervous because, you know, I really liked Paula and we were kind of getting serious at the very get-go. And I wanted to make a good impression with her. So I was nervous about meeting her. And, you know, Navy guys have a kind of a bad reputation of being, you know, out on the town a lot and whatnot. But I just remember being worried about that. But I remember meeting her, it was that summer after Paul and I had met of 88. And those fears were just vanished immediately from meeting her, and just how she embraced me and I felt like she was my second mom. Being, you know, living in San Diego in the Navy, and my family all being in Florida, it was just really comforting having her take me in like that. And a quick story, Paul and I, a few years later, I decided to pop the question to Paula. We were visiting Mary at her house, and it was Christmas morning, and I proposed to Paula. And she didn't seem, I mean, she was excited, and of course she said yes, but I could tell there was something, she wasn't as excited as I expected. But come to find out, Paula told me a day or two later that her and Mary went shopping at the mall. And Mary told her that Paula went to go look at the jewelry store to look at rings. And I remember Paula saying that Mary said that, oh, you don't need to do that. Paul's already got it taken care of, or something like that. So she let Paula know ahead of time of what was coming. But I was upset at first, but how could I be upset at her? She was such a sweet person, and how can you be upset at the person who raised Paula and, you know, who's going to be my wife the rest of my life? And so it was just a funny story I thought of from way back then. but so many good memories of her and Frank as they when they got together and became a good example for Paula and I, not only as parents, but as grandparents to our kids, and how I want to be a grandparent, you know, when hopefully our kids, when they have kids as well. Oh, I think my time is up, but I know this, you know, is sad today, but it's also very joyous because we know I can see her right now in heaven singing with the angels, which she was made for. So very thankful for that. Love you guys.
Thank you, Paul. So Paula has a real treat for us that she's gonna share in a minute. And when she's done, I'll say a few closing words. And then I know some of you probably have to get on with other things that you have going on this weekend, but we will have an informal sharing time after. So if you wanna stick around and maybe share some longer stories or catch up on a few things that were shared at her other memorial service at the Catholic Church, feel free to do that. But just enjoy. We have some beautiful things to see and to hear, and Paula's going to share that with us now.
A pattern's a design that repeats itself each time. You can find them if you care. There are patterns everywhere. What's the pattern of a stare or the ribbon in your hair? Find a pattern on your shoe. Look at tops and bottoms too. There's a pattern on a snake. What's the pattern of a rake? Throw a stone into a lake. See the ripples it will make. It will make. There are patterns at the zoo. Go and you will see them too. Giraffes hide in polka dots, and zebras love their stripes a lot. If you look up in the sky, you might see a butterfly. He has patterns on his wings, sometimes stripes or dots or rings. In your garden you will find there are patterns formed by lines. All the plants grow in a row, the corn up high and the beans down low, the beans down low. There are patterns in the trees, you can see them in the leaves. Patterns hide in bark and flower, you can count them by the hour. Do you see the spider's rings? They are made from silken strings. Every time she spins a web, she sees patterns about her head. Yes, a pattern's a design that repeats itself each time. You can find them if you care. There are patterns everywhere, everywhere.
That was Mary. That was, she recorded a bunch of songs for all of her grandkids, and Paula was able to get one of those onto digital. And I don't know if we can put the picture back, Paula, or not. Is it able to come back up?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. Let me see
So
if I
when
can.
Paula gets the picture up, I'll just keep talking, but there was one other thing I wanted to say about my mom, about Mary. Do you see behind her school picture, the quilt squares? One of the things that Mary loved to do was she loved to make patchwork quilts. She didn't do it all the time, but just different seasons when it struck her as a way to express herself, she would make a quilt. And you might have even noticed that Liv was snuggling with a quilt a little earlier. Behind her picture is Paula's quilt, and I have one like that too. And she did some sewing for us. She made us some clothes, and of course we grew out of our clothes, but she had remnants. She had scraps, and she just would take these little squares and sew them together in a pattern, in a design. And long after our clothing were gone, we had these beautiful quilts that reminded us of our mama who had made us outfits. And she embroidered our names on them in the year that she made the quilt, and they were really special to us. And so Livy had hers, which was strawberries, like the strawberry story. And she made one for Ryan, her first grandchild, that went along with the story that she wrote for him. And as I look at who came out today on the Zoom call and all of the stories that we've been able to share with each other, I feel like it's another patchwork that she's created, that she's touched all of our lives in very unique, very colorful, loving ways. And as we are together, though the miles separate us, there's a really beautiful pattern of her love. And now as we go out into each of our spheres of influence and we share her love, her joy, her appreciation for nature and for just the wonder of life, her pattern will go on. And it really encourages me. I know, like with my boys, they may not have gotten to know her as well because they were a little bit later coming, but her influence is still touching their lives. And thank you so much for what you've brought today and for what you take out from your time with Mary, with our mama, with Grandma Marie. And this is definitely a very healing, beautiful time for all of us. So thank you. We're going to say goodbye to some of you, but if you want to hang around a little longer, feel free. For those who have to go, goodbye, and thank you so much for coming. And now.
Thank you. I'm going now. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the beautiful thing.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Got to do some of the sharing. Mary Paula, you had specifically wanted to hear the stories that were told during the service. And Ruth actually managed to get her whole story in. Ruth, you were amazing.
Okay.
And Livy, I think you got your whole story in too, didn't you?
Yeah, that was basically what I said at the church. Yeah.
Did you guys want to add anything for those of us who have the time and are sticking around to your stories, or did you?
You bet.
Okay, Frank.
Happy to do so. What I did was basically recall how Mary and I met. And it began with the prequel to the story is that I was in the Davis Food Co-op and I was buying groceries and I had written a check and the cashier looked at it and she said, "That's a very fancy signature." And I said, well, that's the signature that you have to have when you're a famous author. She says, "You're an author, famous author?" I said, "Of course." Well, she said, "How many books have you written?" And I said, "One." And she kind of chuckled because she knew I was pulling her leg. And she said, "Well, what's it about?" And I said, "It's a children's story." And her face lit up. She said, "Would you be willing to come and read this to my daughter's teachers, my daughter's class? Because they would love it." And I said, and I didn't tell her, "Look, lady, I'll stand on my head and wiggle my ears to sell my books." But I said, yes. And so a day or so later, I got this call from Mary and we just started to chat. And it was almost magical. in the sense that we just talked about things and we found so many congruencies in our likes and whatever. And so when I went to the school to read my book to her class, I met her principal, and it turned out that her principal had gone to high school with my first wife. Talk about coincidence. Okay, so Mary came up, and here was this, certainly in my view, this very beautiful redheaded woman, and she took me to her class. And when I came in the room, my first reaction was one of chaos. The sense is there were no desks. The room was covered, flooded with art. And the kids were kind of wandering around, and she was kind of herding them into a circle so I could read my book to them. And the story that I read to them, my first children's book, is it's a Little Red Riding Hood tale that my Basque grandmother had told me when I was a kid. And one of the kids, I don't know, Anya, I think you may have even been there. Yes, you do remember that. Whatever, little Ben stood up and said, "Hey, you ripped that story off." It's that's Little Red Riding Hood. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is Little Red Riding Hood. It's just the Basque version of it. So I looked around the room as I was getting ready to leave, and suddenly the chaos disappeared. And what I saw was not just an order, but it was like looking at a very complex impressionistic painting, or maybe something modern. Just there was all of this interest. There was all of this, as the artists say, this gravitas. And that was the beginning, a sense of Mary and my relationship, because as time went on, and I used to tell the story a little differently. When I would tell people, they would say, "Oh, how did you guys meet?" And I say, "Well, I came into her class to read my book, and she locked me in the closet, wouldn't let me out till I proposed," which I usually got a slap on the shoulder for. But that's basically what I recall. And when you look at those pictures, that's Mary. Because Mary was Mary. Mary was never anything other than Mary, because that's all she knew how to be, and that's all she was.
I agree.
That's it.
Yes, she was very authentic, very much who she was. She didn't try to put on appearances to anything but who she was, and who she was wonderful. Does anybody else want to share something? I know that was really perfect, Frank, because when the church did the time for people to share, if you guys weren't watching, we watched it on video from Florida and from wherever we were, and they didn't have microphones. So this story that Frank just told, we were watching him, but we couldn't hear him. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Ruth, do you want to share something now?
Yeah. I'm just realizing anew that Mary never spoke poorly of people.
No.
And we would have extended conversations, because there was a lot of driving, because I lived up in El Dorado Hills and she was in Davis. If we got together, we would be in a car for a long time, also just when we'd get together. But we would have extended conversations, and they really centered around her love of teaching and coming to understand what that was and how to do it. And she really did not, she was not looking to point a finger at somebody or to downgrade them, or, you know, she was a good influence.
Didn't know how.
For me, yeah. And that's a rare thing, you know. I struggle with being judgmental and want to be liberated from that. It's challenging, but there was a way that Mary, she didn't struggle with that. She was not interested in judging people. She really wanted to celebrate them and learn from them and see what was good about them and play with them. And just that whole notion of play, you know, that was so refreshing for me. And because I, through my life, tended to be a more serious spirit, and that just didn't happen around Mary. Not that she was, she just would lift your spirit and distract you, and pretty soon you're kind of running in the fields too, you know. And so it was really nice raising Livy and Mary loving Livy, and just learning how to do that. So anyway, yeah, just a real sweetheart.
I can't tell you how many times she put me back on the straight and narrow too. Somebody would cut me off and I would say some explicative and she would say, "Now you're letting that person give you a bad day." Another story that kind of illustrates that is a time, I think I was always taking, Ryan and I were going somewhere in my pickup one time, and some guy cut me off and I honked at him. And we went on down the road a little further, and I hit the horn and a noise, and it sounded, and I looked over at Ryan. I said, "That was an accident." He says, "Yeah, I know, Grandpa." I said, "How'd you know?" He says, "Because after you honked the horn, you didn't say asshole." Yep.
Does anybody else want to share something kind of at this little ending time? We're down to 12 of us. I can tell another story or two about my mom if you guys want me to. One of the things that I loved about my mom was her generous heart. And she just always wanted to give. If she saw somebody needed something, she would give them. You know, if you said you liked her shawl, she might just give it to you. You know, she just was that kind of person. She was always looking for ways to give to others. And I can remember one of our special times that we had when I lived in San Diego. I would try to come up for Mother's Day to Sacramento, and I would fly up or drive up, and we'd go to the Whole Earth Festival and just spend time together. And whenever I would show up, we would look at each other. We would say, "Well, it's short, but it's going to be enough." And we just nod and agree, it will be enough. We will have enough time. So this one Mother's Day, she had this rose bush in her front yard, and it was exploding with roses. I mean, it was just covered. It was so big and just full of life and roses. And so she got this crazy idea that we were going to go deliver roses to all the moms in the neighborhood. And so we got out her pruners and we got out the old wagon that was kind of creaky from when I was a little kid. We just loaded it full of roses. And we started going down the block, and I'd say, "Okay, where do the moms live?" And she kind of knew. She knew her neighbors a little bit. And we would knock on their doors and just deliver them these beautiful Mother's Day roses. And that was her heart. You know, her heart was to make things grow and then to share them. I love that about my mom. Does anybody else?
Anything else? Yeah. Just so Mary was really fun for me as a kid, but also just going through adolescence and high school. Like, we would get dressed up together with, like, crowns of flowers and ribbons, and go to the Renaissance fair. And I remember just being like, where did Mary come from? Like, she's just so different from everyone else. And then we were at the Renaissance fair, and I'm like, oh, like, look at all these skirts and rain sticks. And it was just like, it was so fun to see her move through the world. And I'm so glad I got to enjoy that as a teenager. And then I went to UC Santa Cruz, and I mean, she just totally, and like my style and my whole aesthetic, and I think I see it with you too a little bit, is like just this like magical, like easy luxury. I don't know. She just made things seem so luxurious, even if they were like thrifted or you made them yourself or whatever. And we would do that with going to the Renaissance Fair. And then I went to UC Santa Cruz, and I remember Mom and Mary drove me down there, and we had so much fun just like playing around on the campus. And I remember being like, I'm entering a world where there's people like Mary, like I'm finding, she's my people, and I'm finding my people. And yeah, just throughout my life, and just looking around my home right now, I'm just so struck at the legacy. Someone had said, Mary Paula, was that you, legacy of just like how her generous heart and warmth and aesthetic, and like just how she encourages your intuition about what feels good and what you like, and you can draw this or that or whatever. That curiosity, like I really do feel like it has flooded out from her and lives in the world today in all of us. So yeah. But I loved her as a teenager. I loved her as an adult. She came to all my art shows. She would come to, when I had a venue in Sacramento and a gallery, she'd come to the gallery openings. And she just was so special and so supportive of me for my whole adult life too. So I feel so lucky. And Frank has been so special to me too. Frank and I have our own friendship, and I just, we're doing Pilates together, and he's like, I'm in a teacher training program, and Frank is such a good student. We're just doing so much good work together, and I feel so blessed that Mary found Frank. I remember their wedding. I remember them jumping around. I just remember when they fell in love and how beautiful that was, and just stayed so in love the whole rest of the time I've known them. So yeah, I'm very grateful for Frank too, and grateful for my cousins and you guys sharing your mom with me and sharing your kids with me. And I just love you all so much. Okay.
I'd like to share a little bit more, if that's okay, but just another theme that seems to be emerging, and this was, I experienced this very much, but how she really saw the person in front of her and truly saw them and was interested in them and cared about them and their dreams, and would kind of come into their world as well, and would, like Paula, when you were sharing about together time, but just very intentionally focusing on you as that one person that in that moment was important. And I think that's a gift that she had, and that we all experienced it. And I'm sure, I think just my stories about how she really saw me, but I think she probably did that for each one of those kids in her classroom. She probably did that for each one of her grandkids. I'm sure each one of them feels like, I know there's a story about a mother who passed away and left letters for her 3 sons. And when each of the sons opened the letter, each letter started off saying, "I'm sure you knew all along that you were my favorite." Like all 3 of them got that letter. And I think just from, I think your mom could have written that letter to probably so many people in her life. And like Livy, you kind of felt like you were her favorite, but I kind of had that sense too. I think she just had this way of being able to really see people and value them and dream their dreams with them and be creative and draw out their, like, to see their giftedness and draw it out and encourage it, almost like people were her garden. I think her students were her garden, and just cultivating whatever was there and helping it grow.
Yes. Mary, I just, Paul mentioned about, his nervousness in bringing his you know, in meeting Mary for the first time, which is kind of fun. I just can't imagine Paul being nervous, but that's okay. Uh, so when I took Mary to meet my mother, and my mother also was very bipolar, and I told her, I said, you know, because as we're driving down, you know, from to Bakersfield, and I'm telling her, kind of prepping her, I said, I got to tell you something about Ma. She's weird. So whatever she tells you, don't take it personally. And you know, I'm kind of building her up, and I said, you know, and another thing is her language is rather, shall we say, inundated with expletives. Like I remember Anya, Mary's student, coming up to me after the first day after class and said, I don't think I ever heard you swear before. You remember that, Anya? So anyway, so we go down and we meet my mother, and my mother is sitting there, and Mary comes over and talks to her, and they talk for this longest time, and my mother would give these little half smiles. And so then Mary went to help my aunt in the kitchen. My mother calls me over, and she leans over, she looks me in the eye, and she said, why in the hell didn't you marry her first?
Frank, I think I remember a story that, and this was from Aunt Mary, but that when you were going to be getting married, that one of her students came up to her and said, you are so lucky because you're going to get a different bedtime story every single night.
Yeah, yes, Mary told me about that too. Yes.
Does anybody else want to share something? Anya?
I had one memory come up. And like I mentioned, you know, my memories of Mary are really intertwined with my memories of my mom, and they were so similar. They had very similar spirits, creativity, philosophies, and my mom was just super active in the classroom during our years there. And I can't remember which birthday it was, but it one of Frank's birthday asked my mom to make a carrot cake.
Oh, that was
And
for
I
our
remember
wedding.
baking this.
She made our wedding cake.
The wedding cake, but there was also a birthday
Okay.
at the school. Like we had it at the picnic tables at the school. And I remember
Okay.
baking that cake with my mom, and it was just this giant carrot cake. And it was because you guys had it at your wedding that, you know, I guess Mary wanted to have it for your birthday too. And so just this memory of baking this gigantic cake, I mean, it was huge because of all the students. And it was, you know, after school one evening, we had a lot of potlucks in class, and it was just kind of this potluck party for Frank. And yeah, it was just a very lovely memory to come up.
Does anybody else want to share something?
I'll say something.
Okay, Paula.
Somebody, we had an email thread and it came through. Can you have Allie shut the door? Anyways, somebody was talking about mom's clothes and how she would wear those crazy colorful socks and she had sandals on. Was it you, Livy? Were you the one talking about it? Anyways,
I was talking about shirts.
it was from a previous time. Anyways, my mom always had these colorful outfits, these colorful t-shirts. You can't, like, when you look through my photo albums over the years of her being a mom and a grandmother, she had, you know, sunshine. Everything she had was tie-dye and bright colors, and she had that red hair, and she could get away with wearing some crazy colors. And As a kid, I was a little bit embarrassed by it because I was more of a conservative dresser and I was always trying to be cool, and mom wasn't about being cool for sure. And she was always trying to remind me that it wasn't about, you know, being cool. So I had a lot of lessons to learn from her, but she had a unique way of dressing. And Anna even said, like, she would be a substitute teacher in one of our classes, and we would just be like, oh no, she's wearing that really crazy outfit today. And we would have to deal with this. You know, we loved our mom. We loved that she played with us and she was so creative, but then we had to be in the world with these other people who didn't understand that necessarily. And so it would make us embarrassed to be embarrassed by her, but it was like, we were embarrassed to be embarrassed for her, and with our friends, we were embarrassed. And so it was kind of it was a difficult position to be in, but I am so thankful that she was the way she was. And especially with my kids, like, it's so much easier when she was dressed like that and stuff, when it was with my kids and she was the grandma instead of me being the child. They just loved that tie-dye, rainbows, wind chimes, songs all the time. One of the stories I was going to share when I was talking about both of the things I talked about, both with her creative way of living and with Together Time, is I had to get allergy shots weekly and then monthly for years. And we would drive from Davis to Sacramento, it's a 30-minute drive. And now I drive 30 minutes. It's nothing, but as a little kid living in Davis, 30 minutes was crazy long. It was so boring. And mom would teach me these rounds. And so we would sing these songs all the way to Kaiser and all the way back. And she would be so patient with me because I would always want to default to her. Whatever she was singing, I would like lose my track of where I was in the round and start singing her one. There was one about swinging along the open road, swinging along under skies so clear, swinging along the open road, all in the fall of the year. And then the other part sang a different, like completely different words. It was difficult and challenging, but when I look back on that time, it was just special carved out time that we would have sitting in our little VW bug driving to Sacramento for my allergy shots. And so that was another little memory that I wanted to share about mom.
That's a good one. My together times with mom were Paula would play cards. I would do books with my mom. She and I, we shared a love of books. That's one thing besides music, just sitting down together and reading. I was remembering we were reading Watership Down. We read all the Lord of the Rings books and probably a lot of other ones too that I don't even remember when I read them. I may have read them with her by myself, but she and I would just cozy up either outside in the backyard or on the couch, and we'd take turns. And we just shared these wonderful books with each other. And then it just would become a part of our culture between my mom and myself, where we would go around and say the rhymes of Tom Bombadillo, who's a character from the Lord of the Rings. And it just was our culture. We had a book culture that the two of us shared with each other. And she also kind of fostered my love of books by, Paula, do you remember how she would take us to Baskin Robbins and we would get an ice cream, and then crazy enough, the bookstore right in the same strip mall would let you bring your ice cream in and eat it while you looked at books, which I can't even imagine how we didn't mess up the books. But mom would always have us bring our ice cream into the bookstore. And while you were eating your ice cream, you could peruse the bookshelves, and then she'd always let you pick one and she'd buy it and let you take it home and read it. And so she really made me associate books with treats, whether it was snuggling up with her or going with that ice cream scoop in to pick a book. And that's definitely stayed with me all my life. I loved those together times with mom.
Anna, as an amendment, her connection with her grandchildren was something magical. And because each one of them loved them in their own unique way, and each of them had a bond with her that was uniquely theirs. And do you remember one time I was I had called you and we were chatting. It was one of our weekly chats. And you were passing me around to the kids, and Emma was there, and you said, Emma, would you like to speak to Grandpa? And she says, yes. And you handed her the phone, and she said, let me talk to Grandma-Marie.
Do you remember that, Emma? No comment. They love you both dearly, you and Mom. Does anybody else have something that you want to share? I just feel like my heart has been so filled with this time, both the official time and the unofficial time, just such a validation of the love that my mom lived out. And I just want to thank you guys, because it's hard losing somebody who's so precious. And my mom's been one of my major people in my life. You know, she and my husband have been my two people who just have shown me their love and complete acceptance. And I've missed her already before she left us because of Alzheimer's. And it's been healing to know that that stage is over, and now even more healing to my heart, and I'm sure to a lot of your hearts, just to share that experience that we've had of knowing such a wonderful person, such a bright light to this world she was and is in my heart. So I guess at some point we should say goodbye, but Ruth, you have one more thing to say. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank you and Paula for all the attention you gave to creating this opportunity for us to all come together and let it just take its time, you know, and not have it, even though it had some brackets along the way, which it needed, still, it really has been an open, flowing celebration. So I'm just so thankful, because I agree, I feel so tender and warm toward everybody, and that we're just in a big hug, which Mary would love, you know, that we're just all together saying I love you and giggling, and, you know, just so warm. And that's one of the things when I do look at my pictures of Mary, her warmth, her physical warmth, she emanated that warmth all the time. And just how you know, what a wonderful sharing of herself, you know, in so many ways, you know. And so thanks for having this happen. I really appreciate it. I know we all did and do, and you sweethearts, thank you. And everybody coming too, thanks.
I have something I want to say. I appreciate being able to be here with you all. It was a very moving celebration of Mary's life, and it touched me a lot. The deep love and the, you know, sharing. And I did put in the chat when I had heard about Mary. There's this lady, Chris Webster, and she's a singer-songwriter, and she's belonged to she was in the Mumbo Gumbo band, but she wrote this song, I Want to Sing with the Angel Choir, and I've been playing that song, and it makes me think of Mary. So thank you for sharing this time, and that I got to be here. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here. I'm really not a singer. They don't give me a microphone when I join the worship band at church because I'm a little imperfect, but there's a song that my kindergarten teacher actually taught me, but my mom helped me remember. And it really, to me, speaks of her heart and the fact that when you love well, like she did, it's not something that can be used up. It's something that just grows. And so Emma, if you know it, or Paula, if you know it, you guys can sing along with me, but I'm just going to sing this song and then I'm going to sign out after that. But you know, that's up to Paula. Nice to keep going. So here I go.
What's the name of the song? What's the name of the song?
Something that you give it away. Love is something if you give it away. Give it away. Give it away. Love is something if you give it away. You'll end
up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. But spend it, lend it, and you'll have so many. They'll roll all over the floor.
Love
is something if you give it away. Give it away.
Give it away. Love is something if
you give it away. You'll end up having more.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. You guys really blessed my heart.
Okay. Bye. I love you all.
Bye, everyone. Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That was so sweet.
Oh, Paula, you guys did such a beautiful job, and it was so smoothly done. So just everything was just enough, and all the transitions and all the planning, it just made it just flow. So
I think so also. I think Anna, she put together kind of a really nice outline for it where there was structure to it, but then there was also freedom for people who wanted to, I had something for that part of Mary's life. And so she really did a good job with that. And I was so nervous, I don't know. I just get so nervous about stuff like that, but it was really just exactly what I wanted it to be for Mom.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I think too.
Yeah. So, and just, I think there was 28, 29 people at some point. So that's a lot of people. That's about how many were there about that many people at her other thing also?
I think so. It's hard to know, but I think about that.
Yeah. So gosh, so many people, and I think it was probably a lot of different people. So
I didn't, maybe those people came to the Davis Memorial, but I didn't know them, so I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I am noticing that the chat, there's 19 chats, comments, and so what do you do about that? I
think people just read those as they happen. It looks to me like a couple of them were just technical stuff at the beginning, and then just people wanting to pitch in little things. I don't know who that Laurel Nesbitt was. I don't know if she was
the lady that talked right at the end.
Yeah. Do you know her?
No, I don't. But she was really moved too, which was so nice that she didn't know us, but she knew Mary, and she really felt a part of. So wasn't that it was so friendly and welcoming
and that man the Alan who had the boys in Mom's class.
Oh, wasn't that darling?
He was just
he kind of choked up and got teary-eyed. It was so sweet.
I know. It's really cool how she just has this lasting impression on people, and they, it's cool to hear how she touched so many people's lives. So, such a neat thing.
Yeah, and it's nice for you guys to experience that and know it's, how far those reverberations are moving.
So it's very cool. Well, I'm thankful that it's over.
Yeah, I know. But good for you.
We did it. We made it through, and it was beautiful. So
and I'm really looking forward to coming and doing our time together, and whatever it's gonna
it's
the intimacy of it is gonna really be it's gonna be very sweet for me. And so I'm just looking forward to, I don't care what the weather is. It's gonna be so nice.
It's gonna be great. Well, I think that the last time you came out, to visit us. I think it was probably about this time of year and it was when Ryan, right before Ryan was born. And I have these pictures of you helping me put together his nursery.
I know.
And I have these pictures of me and Paul getting ready to open the door, go inside, and then there's this picture of the room, and you and me are in these pictures. So I can't believe it's been that long since I've been here. I mean, and it's going to be
so nice,
hot, but it's going to be so good to see you. And we'll just carve out time. We're going to prep the yard so that it's not, we're not pulling weeds and stuff when you're here. We're going to be doing the fun stuff, and we'll mix in the gardening with just visit time. And it's going to be good.
Yeah, and we can help out too. So, you don't try to feel like you have to have it perfect. We can be part of that too,
Right.
Whatever, however it turns out is going to be perfect,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Mom would say.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, good. Well, I have a
nice
good rest of your 4th of July weekend, and
yeah, you too.
We'll be talking before you come out to visit for sure.
Okay.
All right.
All right, dear.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Love you.
Love you.